My name is Nicole Connor, and I'm 29. If you asked my parents what they raised me to be, they'd say independent. But they meant independent as long as it benefits us. I bought my 2-bedroom last year. Nothing glossy, just sun-warmed floors, a temperamental dishwasher, and a second room that I turned into a home office because 2 days a week I'm remote. Every corner of that place smells like the grind that built it. Coffee at midnight, ramen steam, deadlines that felt like cliffs. It is the first space that is purely mine. Sunday dinners at my parents' house are a ritual I keep, even when I don't have the energy. Pot roast, too much salt, the same framed photos where Laya shines, and I hover at the edges. Laya's 27. She jokes that finding herself takes time. My mother repeats that like a prayer, so no one asks what the plan is. We're halfway through the roast when Dad clears his throat, the drum roll before any decree. Nicole, we need to discuss your living situation, he says, carving meat with the precision of a surgeon and the warmth of a landlord. My living situation? I set down my fork. The pause holds like a breath before a plunge. That apartment is too much for one person, Mom slides in, topping everyone's water. But, of course, forgetting mine. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, it's excessive. I use the second room as an office, I say. I work from home. You can work from the kitchen table, Dad dismisses. People did it for generations. Laya's peas become her entire personality. She doesn't look at me. What is this? I ask, steady. Laya needs to move out, Mom says. It's time for some independence. Great, I say. I'll help her apartment hunt. Dad smiles like a judge about to hand down a sentence. Why waste money on rent when you have an empty room? Silence. I can actually hear the fridge hum. You want Laya to move into my apartment? I ask. Want is a strong word, Mom replies. It's what's happening. Family helps family. I feel the floor tilt under my chair. When were you planning to ask me? Dad raises his eyebrows. We're not asking. We're informing you. Laya moves in next weekend. No, I say. The word lands like a locked door. She won't. The explosion is immediate. Selfish. Ungrateful. Disappointing. The greatest hits. Laya stares at her plate like it holds the secrets of the universe. The apartment is mine, I say when the storm pauses for air. My name is on the deed. My mortgage. My rules. Property? Mom laughs, bitter. Is that what family means to you? It means boundaries, I say. It means asking, not decreeing. You're choosing to let your sister struggle, Dad says, voice gone winter cold. I'm choosing to keep my home safe, I answer. I'll help her look. She's not moving in. I leave before dessert, my mother's selfish, clinging like smoke to my coat. On the drive home, I replay it. How neatly they choreographed silence around Leia, how Dad said informing you like he was announcing a waterline repair. The word excessive keeps bumping against my ribs. I change my locks that night. Paranoid? Maybe. Then I send a single group chat text. For clarity, Laya is not moving into my apartment. Any attempt to enter will be considered trespassing. Do not try me on this. The replies relay in a chorus. Dad. Dramatic. Mom. Heartbreaking. Aunties. Family values. Cousins. You forgot where you came from. Laya. Nothing. Silence can be louder than threats. I sleep badly. The next morning, I'm doing emails at my kitchen counter when my neighbor James calls. Hey, Nicole, he says, hesitant. Not to be weird, but there's a moving truck outside your building. Your family said, you were expecting them. My blood goes cold. They're there now? Your parents and Laya. I'm out the door before the call ends. Keys clenched tight enough to brand my palm. The 20-minute drive takes 12. My heartbeat is a fist on a door. And there it is, a small moving truck, boxes labeled kitchen and closet. My parents directing the scene like generals. Mom turns, smile stretched too tight. Oh, good, you're here, she says. You can grab the heavier boxes. No boxes are going inside, I answer. I keep my voice even. We went over this. Don't be dramatic, Dad grunts, muscling a box toward the entry. It's happening. Laya stands by the truck. Her face is soft with embarrassment, but she's here. She avoids my eyes. Laya, I say, turning to her, if you need a place, ask me yourself, not like this. She swallows. Can I stay for a while? No, I say, and I hate the flinch that runs through her shoulders. Not like this. Showing up with a moving truck isn't a request. It's an ambush. Invasion? Mom's voice pitches high. We're your family. Family that ignores no is just a crowd, I say, pulling out my phone. You have 2 minutes to start reloading the truck, or I call the police. Dad steps closer, anger flushing his neck. You'd call the police on your own parents? I'll call them on trespassers, I say, thumb hovering over the dial. It becomes a performance. My mother's sobs swelling for the audience that's gathering. Dad's rants about respect and gratitude. Laya's tremulous accusations of abandonment. Doors crack open. Mr. Chen from 4B looks worried. Jennifer from across the hall watches like a witness and a warning. You're humiliating us, Mom wails. You did that by coming here, I say. I said no. You came anyway. Whether it's the neighbors or the threat of sirens, they cave. Slowly, angrily. Boxes get relabeled in reverse. The retreat is a drip of venom. You'll regret this, Dad says, pointing the finger that used to check my math homework. Family is all you have in the end. Then family should respect my no in the beginning, I answer. The truck door slams. They drive off, and the silence they leave behind is brutal. I stand there shaking, adrenaline souring in my mouth. Jennifer gives me a little nod, the kind that says, I saw. I document everything, timestamps, neighbors present, a photo of the truck, my parents' faces as they argued with me in the hall. Back upstairs, I lock both deadbolts and press my forehead to the cool door. The apartment smells like coffee and lemon cleaner and survival. I send one more message. Further attempts to enter my home will result in police involvement and a restraining order. This is not a negotiation. Dad replies within a minute, paranoid. Mom, you've broken my heart. Leia? Again, nothing. I put my phone face down. The dishwasher coughs, then settles. I breathe until the shake subsides. That night, I swear I hear a key in the lock that no longer fits. Maybe it's the wind. Maybe it's a memory of every time I let them in without question. Either way, I understand something new. They didn't come to help Laia today. They came to test my no. They are not done testing. After the moving truck fiasco, my phone became a weapon. Every ping felt like a landmine. First came the love bombing, the sudden sweetness after war. Mom started sending daily texts. We're having roast again tonight, honey. You're always welcome. Family dinners feel so empty without you. Dad forwarded job listings for Laia with subtle guilt hooks. Your sister's trying so hard, Nicole, you could encourage her. They weren't apologies. They were traps. Each message came with an invisible thread pulling me back into their script. When guilt didn't work, they escalated. It was a Tuesday evening when my building superintendent, William, knocked on my door. His face was uncomfortable, apologetic. Your mom was here earlier, he said. Said there was a water leak and she needed to check your apartment. My stomach dropped. There's no leak. I figured, William said. That's why I didn't let her in. But she got pretty intense about it. He hesitated before showing me his phone, a short video clip. My mother, the woman who once scolded me for raising my voice, was screaming at him in the lobby, claiming emergency access rights and threatening lawsuits. I felt my cheeks burn. William, I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. He gave me a sympathetic smile. Look, families can be messy, but if she comes back, I'll have to report it to management. As soon as he left, I sent the video to our family group chat with one line. This stops now. The replies were predictable. Mom, I was worried about a flood. Dad, you're making mountains out of molehills. Cousin Becca, you're tearing the family apart over an apartment? I didn't respond. Instead, I started a folder on my desktop. Evidence, screenshots, videos, timestamps, dates. Because something in their tone, especially Dad's, felt rehearsed, like they were building a case, not having a conversation. A few days later, the case arrived. An email from a law office. A letter drafted on behalf of Julius and Tessa Connor, reminding me of the moral debt I owed, since they had contributed to my college education. No demand, no legal teeth, just veiled manipulation dressed in legal formatting. I forwarded it to David, my old college friend turned property lawyer. His reply was blunt. Legally meaningless, emotionally abusive, save everything. So I did. Every text, every voicemail, every unwanted visit, archived. Every relative guilt-tripping me, recorded. Still, the attacks kept morphing. Next came public humiliation. It was a Thursday lunch break. I was in the lobby of my office building, halfway through a salad, when I saw her, Laia, sitting by the receptionist's desk. Her eyes were red, her voice trembling just enough to sound pitiful. She never came near me. She just sat there, perfectly visible, letting coworkers wonder. By the third day, people were whispering. My manager, Sarah, finally pulled me aside. Nicole, she said gently, I don't want to pry, but is everything okay at home? I wanted to disappear. Instead, I gave her the short version. My parents trying to force Leia into my place, the boundaries, the fallout. Sarah exhaled, nodding. My brother did the same when I inherited our grandmother's house, she said. Stand your ground. It gets worse before it gets better, but it does get better. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until the words landed. That night, I poured a glass of wine and reread old texts. Mom telling me to be strong when I worked 2 jobs, Dad preaching independence, both now using those very words against me. A sharp memory returned. College senior year, when I'd gone through a bad breakup and had a short stretch on antidepressants. My parents had whispered about it like it was a stain, not an act of self-care. And suddenly I knew. They were saving that detail, waiting for the perfect time to use it. A few days later, my suspicion was confirmed. Mom left me a voicemail, syrupy sweet. Nicole, honey, we're worried. You've seemed unstable lately. Maybe you should see someone again. You remember how much those pills helped? A shiver ran through me. It wasn't concern, it was setup. That night, I added a new folder to my desktop. Folder 2, PsyOps. Underneath, I wrote a single note to myself. They're not trying to win back trust. They're building a story. And I had a sinking feeling that story wasn't over. The next escalation came in a cream envelope stamped with my parents' initials, Julius and Tessa Connor, embossed like they were signing off on a royal decree. Inside was a formal letter. We regret to inform you that due to your recent behavior, you will be removed from all family trust considerations until you come to your senses and help your sister. It wasn't even notarized, just pomp and venom. I laughed when I first read it, a dry, humorless sound. Then I sat down and felt something heavier than anger. The final confirmation that their love always came with strings. I replied that same night, typing with a calm I didn't feel. I acknowledge your decision regarding your estate. My boundaries remain unchanged. I'm happy to help Leia find a place within her means, but not in my home. If family means unconditional love, it should also mean unconditional respect. Then I attached every documented incident so far and CC'd a few extended relatives who'd been spamming me with guilt. It was nuclear, but quiet. Within 24 hours, my phone exploded. Aunt Patrice, you embarrassed your parents publicly. Uncle Mark, this isn't how family handles things. Cousin Jen, finally someone said it. And then, something unexpected. Private messages from relatives who'd been through it too. My cousin Heather admitted she'd once refused to co-sign a loan for her brother, and my parents had painted her as cold and selfish for months. Uncle Ray confessed that Julius had borrowed money from their father's estate decades ago, claiming it was a family loan that was never repaid. Patterns, generational control dressed up as family loyalty. Their stories hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just me. They'd been rehearsing this manipulation for years. For the first time, I realized maybe I wasn't the villain. Maybe I was the interruption. Then came the silence. No texts, no calls, no emergency leaks or fake apologies. It lasted a week, then 2, then 3. For a while, I believed the calm. I even slept better, started going back to yoga, stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. That's when Daniel appeared. We met at a friend's small dinner, one of those evenings where the wine's cheap but the laughter feels expensive. He was 32, a mechanical engineer who listened more than he talked. The first thing I noticed was how steady he felt. By the second date, I told him about the situation. Not the details, just the outline. My family doesn't do boundaries well. He smiled, a little sad. I know the type. I spent half my 20s being my mom's unpaid therapist. For a while, I forgot the storm outside my walls. We'd cook on weekends, talk about dumb Netflix documentaries, or just sit in my office while he tinkered with a gadget from work. He had an ex, though, Kelsey, a name that came up once, casually. We ended years ago, he'd said, but there was something in his tone that made me think it wasn't as distant for her. I didn't worry, not then, because things finally felt stable, until I noticed something small but sharp. Laya's Instagram went private for months after our fallout. Suddenly, her account resurfaced with a fresh bio. New beginnings, second chances, and under her following list, a familiar name glared back at me. Kelsey. I stared at it for a long minute. Coincidence? Maybe. But deep down, I recognized the pattern. Find an ally, twist the narrative, spread the story. A week later, Daniel mentioned that his ex had reached out just to catch up. He didn't think much of it. I did. Still, I told myself not to overthink. My family was quiet. My relationship was new. I wanted to believe peace had finally arrived. Then one Friday night, I got a text from Mom, the first in 3 weeks. "I'm glad you're doing better, honey. We just want you to be safe. Laya's been through a lot. Maybe it's time for forgiveness." The words were syrup, but underneath them was the same rot, and the word safe made my stomach twist, because it was too deliberate, too rehearsed. They were setting up something. I didn't know what yet, but my instinct screamed that safe wasn't concern. It was foreshadowing. That night I told Daniel, "I think my parents are planning something." He rubbed my back, calm as always. "Then let them plan. You've got locks, cameras, a lawyer, and a stubborn streak. You'll be fine." I wanted to believe him, but as I fell asleep, I couldn't shake the sense that the quiet wasn't peace. It was the inhale before a storm. And somewhere, behind that calm, my family was rewriting the story. It started like any other Thursday. Emails, coffee, and mild anxiety about my upcoming Chicago work conference. 3 days, high stakes, a potential promotion if I nailed my presentation. I made sure everything was locked up before leaving. Blinds down, doors dead-bolted, security cam active. No one knew about the trip except my manager, Sarah, and Daniel. Or so I thought. Saturday night, as the conference was winding down, my phone buzzed with a call from my neighbor, James. "Hey, Nicole," he said slowly, voice tight. "Weird question. Did you change your locks again?" "What? No. Why?" "Because your key doesn't work. The spare you gave me last night doesn't fit anymore." My stomach dropped. "James, I didn't give you a key. I've been in Chicago since Thursday morning." Silence. Then, carefully, "That's not what your sister said." "My what?" "She came by Friday," James continued. "Said you forgot to drop the spare off before your flight. Told me you wanted her to give it to me so I could water your plants." My pulse pounded in my ears. "James, can you check my apartment right now?" I heard him walking down the hall, keys jingling, door latch clicking. Then, "Oh my God, Nicole, someone's here. There's furniture in the hallway. Your furniture. It looks like they're moving your stuff out." I don't remember hanging up, or the Uber to the airport, or the flight home. Just a blur of rage and disbelief and one single thought looping in my mind. They wouldn't. They couldn't. When I reached my building at 2 a.m., my worst fears solidified into something real and cold. The locks were changed. Professional work. Clean. Deliberate. Through the living room window, I saw Laya's furniture, Laya's boxes, Laya's clothes, hanging where mine used to be. My office door, now open, revealed a new bedroom setup, right down to pastel curtains and a vanity. My apartment, my sanctuary, had been stolen. I called my parents immediately. Mom answered on the third ring, voice syrupy sweet. "Nicole, honey, how was Chicago?" "You broke into my apartment," I snapped. "We did no such thing," she said smoothly. "We were concerned about your mental health. The locksmith agreed a wellness check was necessary." What are you even talking about?" Dad's voice replaced hers, calm and cold. "You told everyone you were struggling. We had to act. The apartment was just sitting there, and your sister needed a place to stay. It's for everyone's good." "You committed fraud," I said, shaking. "You'll undo this or I'm pressing charges." Dad chuckled. "Go ahead. Call the police. We'll tell them about your instability, your therapy in college, your antidepressants, how we were just protecting you." The line went silent. I couldn't breathe. They were weaponizing my past. The therapy I'd been proud of, the mental health care I'd sought responsibly, now twisted into proof that I was unfit. Mom's voice slithered back in. "We love you, Nicole, but we couldn't stand by and watch you spiral. We just want you to be safe." Safe. That word again. The one they'd been planting for weeks. I hung up and immediately called David, my lawyer friend. He answered despite the hour. "What happened?" I told him everything. The fake wellness check, the locksmith, the fraud. He arrived within an hour, still in sweatpants, briefcase in hand. He scrolled through footage from my security camera. "They used a locksmith who's not licensed anymore," he said grimly. "He's been involved in scams before. We can use that." The footage showed them arriving Friday afternoon. Laya, my parents, and the locksmith. Mom clutching fake papers. Dad gesturing to the door. When the door opened, they walked in smiling. No panic, no concern, just ownership. David took a deep breath. "This is serious. They fabricated a wellness check to gain entry. That's criminal impersonation and property fraud. But we'll need to move fast." "How fast?" "Tomorrow morning. Emergency injunction. I'll file the paperwork myself." I nodded, numb. But numbness turned to fury when I saw Laya's Instagram post an hour later. A photo from my living room. My sofa, my bookshelves, my rug. The caption. Fresh start, so grateful to mom and dad for helping me build a safe home. The comments made me physically ill. Proud of you, girl. Your parents are angels. Finally moving on from toxic people. Nobody mentioned it was my apartment. By morning, the fallout had spread like wildfire. Mom had called my workplace claiming I was unwell. Dad left a voicemail for Daniel saying he should watch over me. And somehow, impossibly, Kelsey, Daniel's ex, had posted a vague tweet about some people not being stable enough for relationships. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing was surgical. They weren't just invading my home now, they were dismantling my life. I sent David every screenshot. He filed the emergency motion before noon. Then, something broke through the chaos. My private investigator, hired quietly by David, found receipts, credit card transactions using my emergency card, the one I'd hidden in a desk drawer. They'd used it to pay the locksmith and the movers. That was proof of fraud. David looked at me, half smiling for the first time in days. They just handed us everything we need. Still, that night, as I lay in a hotel bed, displaced from my own home, I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd win anyway. Because they didn't need the truth. They had a story. And the people who believed them didn't care about evidence, only image. I closed my eyes, replaying Dad's threat. Who do you think they'll believe? The parents? Or the unstable daughter? For the first time in my life, I realized something brutal. They'd rather destroy me than admit they were wrong. Tomorrow, the court would decide whose story mattered more. And for once, I was ready to fight. The courthouse smelled like bleach and fear. I'd never been in one before, not as a defendant, not as a plaintiff, just as a daughter who couldn't believe her family had dragged her this far. David was calm, crisp in his suit, flipping through our evidence like a conductor before a symphony. He whispered, "We have them, Nicole. They forged intent. The credit card use, the locksmith license, the fake wellness check, this is airtight." But I wasn't sure what victory even looked like anymore. All I wanted was my apartment back, and maybe some proof that I wasn't crazy for defending my boundaries. When the judge entered, the room quieted into a tension so thick I could hear my own heartbeat. Mom and his dad sat across the aisle, perfectly composed, like two actors waiting for their cue. Laya looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, wrapped in a pale cardigan, eyes darting anywhere but at me. The judge began with the facts. David presented our evidence, precise and unflinching. He projected the locksmith's disciplinary record, the security footage showing my parents smiling as they entered, the Instagram posts where Laya thanked them for the new home, the transactions on my credit card. Then came the letter from the fake law office, the emails to my workplace. Each new piece was another nail in the coffin of their credibility. When the judge turned to my parents, Mom put a trembling hand on her heart. "Your Honor," she began softly, "we feared for our daughter's safety. She's been unstable before, and she wouldn't answer our calls." The judge's eyebrow lifted, and your response was to change her locks, move her belongings into storage, and relocate your other daughter into her residence? Mom blinked, caught between lies. We just wanted to help. David stood. Help by committing fraud? He slid forward a printed receipt. This charge was made using my client's emergency credit card, taken without permission. The judge's voice hardened. "Mrs. Connor, Mr. Connor, this is identity theft, plain and simple." Dad's composure cracked. "We're her parents. We have a right to protect her." The judge leaned forward, his tone cutting. "Your daughter is 29, an adult. You have no right to her property or her finances." He paused, flipping through pages. "Frankly, your behavior is unconscionable." The word hung in the air, unconscionable, the kind of word that doesn't fade when you leave the courtroom. The ruling was swift. Laya was ordered to vacate within 48 hours. My parents were required to pay for all damages, new locks, and legal fees. And most importantly, an injunction barred them from approaching my property for 6 months. I didn't cry until it was over. Outside the courthouse, Daniel took my hand. "You did it." But victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like exhaustion, because inside I just watched my parents lie under oath and almost sound believable. As we walked down the courthouse steps, a crowd of relatives stood waiting. Some glared, some whispered. Aunt Patrice shouted, "You ruined your sister's life for an apartment." Laya's face was pale as chalk. She avoided my gaze but muttered, "You always had to make it about control, didn't you?" I wanted to shout back, but there was nothing left to say. Every word I spoke would only become another piece of gossip to twist later. That night, I sat in my restored apartment surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and quiet. The walls felt the same, but the air didn't. It carried the aftertaste of betrayal. Mom tried calling once. I let it ring out. Dad sent a single text. "You're dead to us." For a moment, I stared at the message, at the final line in the family script I'd been trying to rewrite my whole life, and then slowly I hit delete. Daniel came by with takeout. We ate on the floor, boxes stacked like fortresses around us. He handed me a fortune cookie and smiled. "Want to know what it says?" I cracked it open. "You can't rebuild trust where there was never foundation." "Fitting," I murmured. He leaned back, thoughtful. "You know, my ex, Kelsey, texted me after the hearing." I froze. "What did she want?" "She said your family reached out to her last week, told her you were unstable, tried to get her to talk to me, to warn me." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "They're relentless." Daniel squeezed my hand. I told her the truth and blocked her. It should have made me feel safe. Instead, I just felt tired, because even after winning in court, I realized something ugly. They'd never stop trying to rewrite me. But this time, they didn't control the ending. I did. I looked around my apartment, my shelves, my coffee table, my office, and whispered to myself, "This space isn't just mine, it's my boundary made solid." And for the first time in months, I slept without fear. 6 weeks after the hearing, I stood in the doorway of my apartment, the same doorway they'd once broken into, and felt the quiet settle in like sunlight after a storm. The locks were new, the walls had been repainted, the air was still, calm, and finally mine. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like aftermath. The court order had given me back my space, but it couldn't erase what happened inside it. Every corner still whispered memory. Dad's voice calling me selfish. Mom's tears on command. Laya's silence that felt like complicity. I'd thought about selling, starting fresh somewhere no one knew my name or the stories they'd twisted. But David talked me out of making decisions while still bleeding. "Keep it," he'd said. "You earned this. Let peace have a chance to live here before you walk away." So I did. The first few days were strange. I'd wake up expecting another ambush, an email, a knock, a voicemail pretending to be concerned. But the silence held. Daniel became my anchor through it all. He'd drop by after work, bringing iced tea and stupid memes, quietly repairing the parts of me I didn't know were cracked. One evening, he found me sitting in the hallway, sorting through old family photos, most of them destined for the shredder. He asked, "Doesn't it hurt to throw them away?" I smiled faintly. "Not as much as it used to hurt to keep them." He nodded. No lecture, just understanding. That's what love should feel like. Not control, not guilt, just quiet understanding. Then, out of nowhere, came the letter. A simple cream envelope with shaky handwriting. Grandma Ruth Connor. I hesitated before opening it. My grandmother had sided with my parents for years. I expected blame, not peace. But the letter began with 6 words that made me sit down on the floor. I finally heard the whole story. She wrote that she'd seen the court transcripts and the photos, that she was ashamed of how her son, my father, had behaved. She said she'd lived through the same pattern decades ago when Julia stole money from his siblings and manipulated their parents into silence. "History repeats," she wrote, "until someone is brave enough to stop it. You stopped it." By the time I finished reading, the tears came. The quiet, exhausted kind that don't burn anymore. I realized she was right. This wasn't just about an apartment. It was about ending a cycle of ownership disguised as love. I started therapy again, this time not out of desperation, but out of healing. My therapist helped me name things I'd never dared call by their real names: gaslighting, enmeshment, generational control. She said, "Nicole, you didn't lose your family. You lost your captors." That sentence cracked something open in me. Because she was right. What I'd been mourning wasn't love. It was the illusion of it. A love that demanded obedience. A love that punished independence. I began living differently. I blocked numbers without guilt. I kept my curtains open again. I stopped flinching at the sound of keys in a door. I even started writing, journaling every detail of what happened, not for revenge, but for clarity. Each page felt like reclaiming oxygen. Laya sent one email a month later. It read, "I hope you're happy. You've ruined our family." I didn't reply, because the truth was, the family she missed, the one that ignored boundaries and fed on guilt, needed to be ruined. Sometimes destruction is the only way something healthy can grow. By December, Daniel and I had taken a small trip to Oregon. No drama, no surprises, just mountains and quiet. One night by the fire, he asked, "Do you ever think you'll forgive them?" I thought about it for a long time. "Maybe forgiveness isn't what I need," I said finally. "Maybe what I need is distance. and the right to keep it. He smiled. Then that's your forgiveness. To yourself. The next morning, I watched the sunrise over the cliffs and realized I didn't feel haunted anymore. My apartment back home was waiting. Safe, locked, peaceful. My boundaries weren't walls anymore. They were doors I finally had the key to. And as I wrote in my journal that night, I found the words that would close this chapter for good. Sometimes the price of peace is losing people who never wanted you free. But peace bought at that price is never a loss. It's freedom. I closed the notebook, exhaled, and smiled. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's daughter, sister, or scapegoat. I was Nicole Connor, homeowner, survivor, free woman. And that was enough.